I'm so excited to be here at this magnificent historic house, Constable Burton, here in Yorkshire. And I'm just about to meet my really good friends, Darcy and Imogen Wyville. During my visit, I am spellbound by the Georgian-inspired interior decoration.
There are 11 paint colours in this room.
11?
11, so you can see, the beading and the framework, so it's quite amazing.
I visit a beautiful area of the estate where Darcy and Imogen are following their dreams.
So what we're trying to do here is we're trying to create a destination so that people can come here from, generally all around the world.
When I married into the British Aristocracy, it was the start of a wonderfully exciting journey. But it was also a little daunting. I became a Viscountess, and for an American girl from a small town outside Chicago, that was quite a shock. I live with my husband Luke, heir to the Earl of Sandwich, and our family at Mapperton House in Dorset. Living in a place like this is a joy, but also a challenge. And every day we're aware that we're preserving a very special part of Britain's heritage. Mapperton has opened up an extraordinary new world for me, and I can't wait to share it with you all. So if you love castles and manors and stately homes as much as I do, please join this American Viscountess as I journey into the British countryside in search of some of Britain's finest historic houses. Welcome to the drawing room here at Mapperton. Although this room is part of the Tudor wing of the house, it does have the character of the 18th century with paneling and furniture of the Georgian period. So many historic homes that I visit are remodeled as fashions and architectural styles change over the generations. Recently, I visited the most beautiful Georgian country house in North Yorkshire, Constable Burton Hall. Home to the Wyville family since the 16th century, it was once an Elizabethan house, but reimagined in 1768. Hello. Hello.
Come on in.
Goodness. It's so wonderful to be here. And who's that?
That's our welcome committee. That's Minna.
It's so nice to see you. So nice to see you. So nice to see you.
Hi,
Hello,
Luke.
hello,
How are
hello.
you?
Nice to see you.
Nice
Wow.
to see you too. Welcome. A lovely, lovely day.
Thank you for
Amazing day.
bringing the sun
Yeah,
for me,
you.
right?
amazing. Yeah, it's a proper Yorkshire day today. Welcome.
Gosh, it's so wonderful to finally actually be here. I know we've always had this plan, like I'm going to come and see you, and
I know.
finally I'm in Yorkshire, which
Yeah.
is brilliant with the sun and Minna.
What a joy. I know.
It's so beautiful.
She's the star of
The
the show.
matriarch.
And look at, wow, I've got more of a welcoming committee right there.
That's Luna,
I know.
and that's
Oh,
Stella at
Stella.
the back. Mother and daughter.
Yes. Luna is the mother, Stella's the daughter.
And there's a whippet running
And
around
there's a whippet
somewhere.
puppy
Oh my
somewhere.
goodness.
I know. I know.
Oh,
She's-
good.
And,
well done.
and 3 children.
And 3 children.
Three children, yeah.
Right, right. Fantastic.
3 children, 4 dogs, and
Right.
one old house.
And one old house. So tell me about this wonderful old house. Right.
Originally, it was we think, a medieval hunting lodge, and this house passed through from generations from the 1590s. The first big house was built here,
Okay.
which was Elizabethan in style. The family story goes that one of my descendants wanted to get some reparations made to that house. They went away to go and do a job in Scotland. They left plans with a young architect called John Carr of York, who's probably now one of Yorkshire's most famous architects,
Yes.
to get some reparations done on the house. And he came back a year and a half later, and he was on his horse being followed by his servants, and he said, "Where's my house?" And they came back and it had been demolished to the ground floor.
No.
Yeah. So it was rebuilt.
A little miscommunication,
Oh,
Yeah. So
to put it mildly. Can you imagine that moment?
right. And do you have a picture of the original house.
We do actually, yeah. This is the kip drawing here. So we think original house sits pretty much on the footprint of the old house.
Okay.
The lawn out there on the left-hand side is the large lawn out there. There were some formal gardens running down to the little stream, which is all back there. The lakes are behind the house here.
Right, and you still have the lakes.
They are there. They're not octagons like that, but there is a lake there.
Yep.
So there's always a bit of artistic license in these drawings because they're trying to get everything into the landscape, so the topography is not spot on. However, the Lime Avenue, which is going up there, is still here. So that's what it looked like.
So then this was flattened or pulled down.
Yeah, basically.
And when he arrived,
literally the sort of the ground level foundation was here.
Yeah.
It was here.
And that was it.
That was it. So they decided to go around a major redesign on it. We're talking in the Georgian era.
Okay.
And of course, the style, which was the Palladian style, because the aristocracy of the time were going off to do the grand tour, and all these European influences were coming back to the UK, and so was the architectural side of that as well. So this house was then rebuilt in the Georgian style, finished in 1768, and we've been here as a family, you know, before and ever since.
Oh my goodness. Constable Burton has the most intimate and relaxed atmosphere of almost any historic house I've visited. As soon as you arrive, you feel you're being invited into a loving family home. Its beautifully decorated and preserved interior is the result of years of hard work by Darcy and Imogen and Darcy's parents during their tenure at the Hall.
This house is in pretty good nick.
Yeah.
When my parents took it over, it was not in good nick. They were fairly young when they came up here. There'd been a lady who'd been living in the house as a sitting tenancy between my grandfather's death and my father taking over.
Right.
And so apparently the roof had holes in it and there was water damage in most of the rooms. She'd actually was just living in the drawing room, which she'd made into her apartment. And a lot of the works of art had been taken out and they'd been stored in the stables, badly stored in the stables. And so when my parents decided that they were going to come up and make a go of this, they had to set around doing a large renovation of the place.
Right. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
When Imogen and Darcy moved into the Hall in 2016, much of the major renovation work had been completed, but they were faced with modernizing this impressive Georgian building.
You know, the sort of plumbing and the heating and
the less attractive
and
jobs.
you know, all that kind of stuff. Which is
and the ones that nobody knows too much about, which is why it's always nice to say, we did this,
yes,
that,
we did.
because it's invisible.
Right, so we took over Mapperton about the same time as you, so 2016, the two of you. And one of the first things we did that nobody sees is the copper piping.
Right. Yeah.
So got rid of all the lead piping and did the copper piping, but nobody sees that. And then we ended up doing a sort of a biomass boiler to heat it. You know, it's all the stuff that people don't see.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So we run the house off a biomass boiler.
Yeah.
We get the wood off the estate, and so sort of innovation of that kind of things is really important, actually.
Yeah.
And back in the day, these houses were completely self-sufficient in their own right anyway.
Exactly.
So we feel like we've gone on a bit of a journey, and we're doing the same with our water. We've got boreholes here, so we've got our own heat, we've got our own water. You know, at some stage the technology is moving, and I'm sure we'll be able to do something with the electricity side of things as well.
As homeowners, we must innovate and do all that we can to make these historic houses adaptable and sustainable for life today and beyond. And I couldn't wait to explore and see how Imogen and Darcy have updated the Georgian interiors.
So this is the library. In its modern guise, this is what this is. It's an after-dinner relaxing room, originally being the library. It would be obviously for working and reading in. Now, this was the only room that when we renovated it, we changed the paint scheme in here because it would have been white as possible to lend lots of light so you could read via the natural light that was coming in. Funny story, the wallpaper's original.
Is it?
Victorian
Lovely.
original.
Right.
I think it's called Strawberry Hill.
Strawberry Hill, yeah. It's also found in the Houses of Parliament. Well, Imogen came in with this paint palette, and I brought my parents up here, and it had been a very white room beforehand, and we walked in, and I came in here with my mum and dad, and I said, so what do you think? And they said, well, Darcy, it's very sex, drugs, and rock and roll, isn't it?
It's perfect.
Yeah, so
it's the perfect color scheme for this room.
So this room that we're going to go into next is called the morning room, and in its current guise, it's actually my study.
Fantastic.
Which I share.
Do you share it with your husband?
I don't share with my husband.
I'm about the only
Actually,
person
you know
who's not
what?
allowed in here.
When we moved in, I did think that we might have, what they call a partner desk. Well, this is a partner desk, and
Yes.
I did wonder whether we might sit opposite one another, and then I quickly realised that was a terrible idea.
Right.
And that we might not be still here today if that was the case. But no, so this is where I sit and manage things. And ever since COVID, I share the space with my son, who this was his little homeschooling area, and he's retained it.
But also, it's really comfortable.
It's a beautiful room.
It's
a
beautiful.
beautiful
And
scale.
this color then, did you have consulting
all
around that?
So all of these rooms that we're going to walk through now are all in the exact colour scheme.
The
that the Georgians would
1768
have
colour
used.
scheme, yeah.
Oh, wow.
So
This is my kind of color.
Yeah, so
Like-
this is a very beautiful colour that was actually mixed specifically for this house. And it's called Mallory Blue. And it's actually a sort of very pale blue undercoat.
Right.
And then stippled on with a wire brush into this sort of dark. And you can see the kind of variation in the colour. So as the natural light fades, the beautiful sort of evening glow of the lamps and the chandelier, there's actually a real warmth in this blue, which is, you wouldn't necessarily expect. And it really makes the gilding of the frames pop.
One of the John Carr sort of architectural designs was to have a thin line at the top of above the frieze and the ceiling. So that's meant to sort of draw your eyes up to the ceiling.
Wonderful. And I can see, of course, you use this room because dotted all around are sort of photographs, family, children.
Yeah.
It's wonderful. And that's what's, I think, so fascinating about these historic houses that are privately owned, lived in, but of course, open to the public when they need to be or for events. I can see you're having an event here. There's a big marquee outside, but that they're lived in. And so that the living history continues with us so that the next generation can tell stories about you. And that's what's so wonderful. It continues. It doesn't stop.
Yeah.
So often, as we get older, we really start to appreciate the history of our surroundings. So I asked Darcy, was he always aware of the historical value of his childhood home?
Even when you're kind of growing up in these places, you're not necessarily paying much attention to everything. And certainly that was in my case. And then when I came back from my job in London and I was starting to think about moving in here and living in here, and my father would do the house tours, and he's the sort of living, breathing historian of the family. And suddenly I realized that I had to get up to speed quickly, smarten up. And then, of course, from that, then the interest starts to come in the furniture and the paintings. And, we always say that we're just in these houses just to hold on to them or hand them on to the next generation. We're custodians of our time.
Yes.
One would like to think that you are going to move these houses on to the next generation. That's the goal, that's the dream.
Yes.
And, we're lucky, this house, even though like lots of other houses, there have been moments of where it's been hanging on a thread.
Yeah.
And we've had to marry a cousin or two or done something like that in order to keep it together. It is still here. And They need to sing for their supper. They need to work. They have to put money into the coffers. The trade-off of living in one of these beautiful houses is that there is a second side of that, which is we have to make it work. We have to monetize that, and
Of course.
That's just part of
that's
the deal.
how these historic houses are. I mean, they are survivors, but we've come into an era where, gone are the days of, they were surviving because there was a lot of staff here, and the people who are living on the estate sort of worked here, and this was in one sense their village. That was it.
Yeah.
We've completely evolved, times have changed, and in order to preserve these historic houses, we do need to have events. We do need to open up occasionally or all of the time, just depending, and weddings, whatever it is, to continue to fix
exactly.
the roof, or to look at the color palette and the colorway.
It is a great house for entertaining. We do a lot of, we have a lot of private clients staying in the house, and I think that's one of the lovely things about this house is that the scale of it, dictates the size of the party staying. So we don't do sort of vast weddings for hundreds, but the house is a really wonderful entertaining space. The dining room next door, that you'll get another feel for that. We use, not like this, but we do use for breakfast, lunch and dinner as a family.
Do you?
Sunday lunch, we'll have lunch
brilliant.
in here. If it's just us as a small family, we'll sit at the table in the window. But this is where we have Christmas, this is where we have all of our family occasions. But again, these are the original Georgian colours. There are actually
I love 11, the door.
There are 11 paint colours in this room. 11. So you can see, the beading and the and the framework. So it's quite amazing. And actually, my father-in-law was the first one to go down this route in this room, and he wasn't convinced when he got presented with the colours. He thought it was a bit outrageous, the dark paint ceiling, and so he actually painted up a full panel before he committed. Just to be sure. And actually, it's such a success. Again, as the light dims, it's really, really atmospheric in the evening with the candles and the crystal and the silverware. So it's really magical.
And the furniture in here is original. This is a Gillow Imperial table. Gillow of Lancaster was one of the great furniture makers. Used the same sort of time as Chippendale. We've got a lovely Gillow sideboard at the top here. These urns were actually they're lead lined and they're wine coolers. It's very, very nice to have the original furniture here, and that's part of the journey of owning these houses. You pick up these nuggets and you speak to other people, and some people sometimes you just look at a table and you think it's a table. Actually, once you get to the history of it all and it becomes part of the fabric of the house.
Exactly, and the craftsmanship that goes into these pieces.
This is our inner hall, and obviously the wonderful cantilever staircase in here, and that job is to lead your eyes up to the roof. And so we've got these lovely demi-lunette windows that let in a sort of different angles of light during the day, and leading up to some of the bigger pictures in the house. These are sort of big, Reformation pieces, the 1540s, that kind of era.
Wow, how wonderful. But then, of course, you've got, you are living here, and what was wonderful to hear is that and I can see that you use all of these rooms, which is how these houses should be used.
Yeah.
It's really nice. I mean, obviously, some of the rooms where we've got some of the nicer pieces of furniture and things, we've had to put blue tack underneath things to stop balloons and bouncy balls and scooters.
Ball games in the house, darling.
No ball games in the house. But generally, you can't live in a house like this and be too fussy about kids and dogs and all that kind of wear and tear. It's just part of the fabric.
It's part of the fabric.
And once in a while you can get in, you can give the place a lick of paint, and off you go again. So we are very conscious that we don't want our children to be constrained by feeling like they're living in a monument.
Right.
They're at home.
I don't think they do. I don't get that feeling.
No, I don't think they do either.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much for this sort of whistle-stop circuit tour. I think it's, really wonderful. Darcy and Imogen have combined comfortable modern family life with Georgian splendor at Constable Burton, and that extends out into the park as well. Well, we're now leaving your beautiful house. Tell me where we're going.
So this is the Lime Avenue. This is one of my favourite places in the gardens. This was actually on the original Kip drawing and led away to the, now leads up to our kitchen gardens. And the trees in here are over 400 years old. They're European limes. And this is a really magical time of year to come and visit them because it's like a sort of cathedral. They all meet in the middle. Obviously, avenues are very much part of the British landscape.
Yes.
And we're very lucky to have one. And you know, it just brings its own vibe, this place. You walk into it, everything dulls down, you get this wonderful dappled light coming through at this time of year. In the spring, this is all full of daffodils, and then we just let it go. So it's full of cow parsley and dock leaves and wild garlic and bluebells and cyclamen.
The smell is amazing.
And you walk in here and everything kind of just, it's a very sort of very cool part of the gardens. This was the start of the pleasure gardens. And when you get up to the top here, you are dropping into the forests and the trees and the really wild parts of the estate. So it's kind of formal and functional meets wild.
Yes,
and it's
exactly.
just a really lovely part
And
of it.
it's extraordinary though when this, because these are, you said what, 400 years old? Is that
Yeah.
right? But
Yeah.
look at how they're perfectly spaced.
Yeah, we're very, very lucky to have them. And the forethought in the planting here, I mean, you can imagine you're going to plant this avenue, you're never going to see it. You know, when you plant it, it's going to be, I don't know, like it's going to get to like 10 meters in 50, 60 years. And here it is now, 400 years later, and it's probably now at its very, very best. So thank you to those that came before us. We are undertaking a big planting scheme on the estate. We've planted over 20,000 trees here over the last 4 years. And so we're, you know, as we know, the trees are the lungs of the planet.
Yes.
And we all need to be planting more of them. But they're very rare to find veteran trees. And these are a great example of that.
Look at this light.
Yeah, great sun.
Oh
great
my
sun.
goodness.
So this is another area here, which is our ponds. So there's the ice house over here. So they dug these ponds to create the ice, to put in the ice house to chill the food, to keep it fresh. So this
And you
is
still have
a beautiful
the ice house.
area.
Still got the ice house,
you can see it.
Oh my gosh, it's perfectly in condition there.
Yeah.
It's in pretty good condition. They
Little
always
sort
had
of
a...
Monet-esque Giverny.
This is, what am I looking at down here?
So these are two ponds side
Oh
by
right,
side.
I see.
And actually there's some beautiful rhododendrons here. There's another gorgeous little area of the garden that you don't necessarily expect. These beautiful buttress walls here, which are normally covered in roses.
I feel like I'm in like the secret garden right now. Oh my goodness.
Amazing.
When I was just viewing that from a top, that's why I thought it was just sort of growing from the earth, but it's clearly coming up from the pond here. This is sensational.
Yeah, it is. So these ponds were meant to be very shallow. So the idea is that they would take off the ice and they would take it into the chamber there. That doorway there, facing there, is always north facing, so it gets the cold air straight into it. When you go into the little channel, there's a big bulb behind it, and then it drops down about 30 feet into that. And what they would do is take layer after layer after a layer of ice off. They'd stack it up all the way up to the top, and then over the winter and through the summer, the ice would gradually melt. And basically it's a Georgian fridge.
Right, it's a Georgian fridge.
Yeah.
This is
Genius.
Imogen and Darcy have big plans for Constable Burton. They are literally following their dreams.
This part of the Yorkshire Dales is one of the great tourist attractions anyway. When I was growing up here as a little boy, the road that goes at the bottom of the drive there just have no traffic on it at all. Now it's busy. My father in 1975 started a caravan park, which has been a great little business. And when we came up and we started looking at the estate and seeing what we could do and where we could make our mark, that was a natural place to look towards.
Okay.
Because there was already a business there. We knew that there was enough through fare, enough business coming up into the area, which we're very lucky about. Although we are still remote, there's still a lot of people who come on their holidays in the Yorkshire. It is a national park.
Yes.
And so we've been in development for the last 4 years on a new tourism business. And we're very excited that it seems to be going in the right direction.
Right.
We're developing 53 lodges.
Oh my goodness. Can I see this area?
Yeah, we'll
We'll
take you up there to go and have a look at it.
It's really exciting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Lovely.
Oh my goodness, let's head there.
Let's head
Okay,
there now.
perfect.
Fantastic. So you were mentioning your legacy project, and is this where we're heading to right now?
This is where we're heading.
Yeah,
So
this is-
this is super exciting for us. It's been a long journey of discovery, and when we first left London and came up to Yorkshire, so aware of the beauty of where we lived, and we are in this exceptional situation. We're literally on the edge of the Yorkshire Dales National Park. So it's an incredible opportunity as a launch pad for visitors to come and experience this amazing wilderness. And here we are. This is it. This is what we've
the
got
future.
our
Yeah, I mean,
heart
it's-
set on.
So what we're trying to do here is we're trying to create a destination so that people can come here from, generally all around the world. We're not buying lodges off the shelf. We've designed these things from the ground up. They are based on the field barns that are up in the Yorkshire Dales. So they're 1, 2 and 3 bedroom units.
Okay.
And they're going to be really, really spaced out. And this is a big site here. Our caravan park next door, which has got 120 pitches on, is a third smaller than this. So we're actually going to put 53 lodges on there if we get planning permission. We're going to have a lake in here. There's a natural watercourse that goes underneath the ground. We're going to open that up. We're going to have a wild swimming lake. We want to have a yoga space. We want to have various different other catering options up here that we can move around. On an evening like this, you can just feel what it would be like to be up here.
Yeah.
Doing some yoga.
Doing some
Then
yoga.
doing a swim, and then I might
You
have
can do
sort of
the
my
first retreat for me.
Oh, I would love
Okay,
that.
done.
I mean,
Done.
yes. I could sort of rent out the entire sort of 53 lodges. How many people I could get? A lot.
A lot.
Could I?
A lot.
Yeah, this will be a sort of groundbreaking development for this part of the world, and we want to make sure that when we do it, we've done it to our very best ability.
Right. And it's also, it sounds like it's sympathetic to the landscape.
100%. So
It's got a lot of natural assets which
Yes.
we're making the most of, in our plans.
Right.
And these modular buildings, they will be bought on site, assembled,
Right.
with a very light touch on the natural environment. We've gone to the utmost lengths to honour and respect this magical place that we live in.
Yeah.
And it is magical. I mean,
Yeah.
it's beautiful. I suspect I'm one of the sort of first visitors
Yes,
to be able
you've had an inside
You've
to-
got
access.
exclusive access.
to see the
Yeah.
dream.
Yeah,
To see the
exactly.
dream.
To see the dream.
Exactly.
Brilliant. Now, I'm just going to ask. We are there's a nice walk. Is that right back to
Yeah,
the house?
there is. I mean, the house is just on the other side of those trees. We just go up the walk here,
This
and,
was the
and
original
you're into the park.
entrance to Constable Burton. So
No.
the caravan park gates were
Yes.
the original entrance. This track was part of the driveway, and we'll now snake down, wander through the parkland, and approach Constable Burton Hall as you would
As you would have meant
first
to have
would
done,
approached
yeah.
it.
From that picture that we saw
Yes.
before.
Exactly.
Right here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
How brilliant.
We
Yeah.
don't have the horse and cart, but we can pretend.
We'll pretend. I'm going to just imagine.
Yes.
I'm going to go back
Yes.
300 years.
Yeah.
Yes.
And imagine walking
Yeah.
back, yeah?
Yeah.
Amazing.
Brilliant. Yeah, exactly. And look at this.
I know. Amazing.
Hello, dear viewers. Are you passionate about history and stately homes as much as I am? Then sign up for the American Viscountess newsletter. Here you'll get exclusive insider stories from my latest visits to castles, manors, and stately homes, and stay updated on all the exciting projects at Mapperton. You'll also get access to all of my blogs, like the recent Legendary Balls of British High Society. So don't miss out, subscribe today, and join our wonderful community of heritage enthusiasts. I'm here visiting my friend Lady Cara Willoughby and her spectacular house, Birdsall House, here in Yorkshire. I'm very interested to learn more about the history of the house, but I can also hear some work that's going on right there. So I'm sure Cara is going to fill me in on her latest project. Every single family living in a historic house really does aim to balance that modern family life with the responsibility, though, of preserving a historic building for the future. I recently visited my dear friend Cara Willoughby at her family home, Birdsall House in Yorkshire, where history is literally helping breathe new life into their house. Hello! Oh my goodness! It's so amazing to be here, and this weather.
No, it's always like this in Yorkshire.
Somehow. All right, I do believe you. Oh, okay. Can I just say, Cara, first and foremost, walking down the drive to here, this house is spectacular. Then the windows are just huge. The windows are just vast.
We're so lucky we've got so much light coming into this house.
Yeah.
So this is the main start of the house. It was built in 1540s. And it was smaller and darker.
Okay.
And then 200 years later, they made it look Georgian. So it's the look that it's got now with the big windows.
I see. So this is what I love about these historic houses, because you think, oh, it's a Georgian house, and then you find out it's actually Tudor.
So it was started after
right.
the dissolution of the monasteries
Yes.
with Henry VIII. And then the Sotheby family from the auction house, they bought the land, and they built a house in the 1540s, which was much smaller. And then in 1720s, the Willoughbys bought in and married the daughter.
Ah,
and
good marriage.
Good marriage. They had the money. She had the house, and they brought a lot of money in, and that's when they made it look much more Georgian in appearance. And they added wings. And
right. So what do you call this room?
This is the long hall.
This is the long hall. Yeah. Brilliant.
Two big fireplaces, and therefore probably was 3 rooms.
Right.
Once upon a time.
When I was walking in, obviously it is vast. You've just said that this is sort of the original part, and then it was added on, because there's almost like 2 different wings on either side.
Yeah, so one wing was 1775, 1800, and that has the oval room and the ballroom in it. And then we've got the dining room was added in 1873.
Right.
That side.
Okay.
So luckily they built it all looking the same, with the same look. Rather than making it very Georgian and then very Victorian. So it ends up looking very symmetrical now.
Yes, it does. I mean, it's beautiful. So you have a ballroom.
We do. Could you go and find it?
I want to see your ballroom.
So we have an unbroken line of portraits from 1570s. So we can tell everyone who they are and who they're all painted by. All the way down. Unbroken.
What? Unbroken?
Yeah.
You're kidding me. Okay, so who do you want to start with first? I don't even know where to begin. Where do you begin when you have this many ancestors hanging on the wall?
The ones that, the oldest ones are through there.
Incredible.
The whole lot.
All Willoughbys.
All Willoughbys. But I love the fact that this is just a younger son. They couldn't be bothered to work out who it was.
That's brilliant. A younger son. Oh, those poor younger sons. They were never really given much thought, were they? So this is spectacular.
So this is the oval room, and these are the oldest portraits. So this is Elizabeth Willoughby.
Right.
And her husband, Francis Willoughby. Sir Francis Willoughby.
Okay.
And they built a huge family home called Woollerton Hall in Nottingham. That's where the main family home was.
Okay, so the Willoughbys technically come
From Nottinghamshire.
From Nottinghamshire.
Exactly.
Okay.
So it was a younger son that married the daughter, the Sotheby daughter.
Right, I see.
So
and then you ended up here.
So the main house was sold in 1923 due to double death duties. So we don't have that anymore, but then that was, and many other estates were sold, and then we've ended up here.
Right, the double death duties.
Yeah, 80%.
80%,
So it's big.
unbelievable.
It's big, especially when you just lost the people whose death caused the death duties, you just lost them in the war. So they gave their lives, and yet you were still taxed on it. So it's a bit of a double blow. But that's what happens. So
That's what, in order to help pay for the wars.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. So what was that house called? The original
Wilton Hall.
They built that. These two
guys built it. They made their
right.
money on coal. Started off about 1200s. Made their money on coal, and that's how they built Wilton. Interestingly, he was brought up by his maternal uncle, who was the father of Lady Jane Grey, the 9-day queen. So they were brought up together as brother and sister, although they were first cousins. And then, obviously, when Lady Jane Grey was put on the throne, the Willoughbys went slightly out of favour once she lost her head.
Right, right.
So that didn't work so well for them.
I think
so
he's
then
quite
he
handsome.
I think he looks really mean.
No, I don't know. There's something, I don't know.
No, I don't think he was a very nice man.
Oh, okay.
I think he was a bit of a meanie.
Oh dear. Okay. Whoops.
But they had 8 daughters. So suddenly it was like, oh no, what do we do? So their eldest daughter was called Bridget, who's over there. And she took on the house, and she married her second cousin, who was the legitimate heir, because girls couldn't,
Of course,
inherit. So the couple opposite are the two who took over the house. So then it goes down and down.
And then it goes down and down. Oh my goodness. They're lovely portraits though. They're in brilliant condition, I have to say. But yeah, I don't know. I kind of like him.
I like her. I think she looks more fun. Well, she's got good clothes.
She does this, yeah. And she has brilliant clothes. I mean, look at that. It's completely embellished. I mean,
I think her daughters fought over her clothing when she died because it was so covered in jewels.
Well, I would too.
Yeah.
So oval room.
Oval room.
Yep.
And then ballroom.
And oh my goodness. This is like a proper ballroom. Okay, do you use this room?
We do, not for balls.
Yeah.
But we do. Yeah. Nowadays we use it for
What?
weddings.
What do you mean you're not having ballroom dances in here?
So these are gasoliers. So Birdsall made its own gas from coal pits because that's how the family made their money.
Right.
And then the gas was pumped up to the house, which you can see the vents in the ceiling.
Yes.
And then these are all gasoliers, which is why their height is such this. So it's one of the first private houses to have gas-lit rooms. Which makes it must have been amazing after candlelight.
Exactly. Yeah. And they all working.
No, they're electric now.
Oh, right. I was really going to be impressed.
Definitely electric.
I was like, that's super impressive that you're still able to do this. It's like, wow.
So we now do events here, and part of those events we do weddings here. So we'll do about 15 weddings a year, and these rooms are used for wedding breakfasts, or they're used for concerts. We have classical concerts in here throughout the year. We've got a play going on around the gardens at the moment, so they'll be using it. So it's used for all sorts of different things.
Oh my goodness, wasn't that ballroom absolutely spectacular? I mean, the atmosphere and those wonderful, wonderful windows flooding the room with light, it was amazing. And I felt as if I was stepping into a historical novel, which frankly isn't too far from the truth. This wonderful, look at these portraits, are stunning.
This lady is interesting because she is the great aunt of Jane Austen. And Jane Austen's mother was called Cassandra after her. Jane Austen's sister's called Cassandra after her. She was Cassandra Willoughby. And the names of Willoughby and Middleton in their Sense and Sensibility are from this family.
are from this family. Oh my goodness. So that's Jane Austen's great aunt. And do we know if they were close? Did they have a relationship?
So she married the Duke of Chandos, and I think it was always seen to be, you know, wanted to, in those days, sort of go up. So they were named after her because she was the Duchess of Chandos, and you know, therefore seen. And she was quite a society figure. She was also incredible at keeping documents and writings on how life worked at that time.
She's incredibly glamorous, though, too. I mean, I think she's strikingly beautiful. But very. Have you had any Jane Austen films here? Because when I was walking down, I actually felt like I was stepping into a period drama.
It'd be great, though, wouldn't it?
Well, yes.
A quick sense of sensibility in the home of Mr. Willoughby.
We really need to get a Jane Austen Hollywood film here, that's for sure. I mean, wonderful, absolutely stunning. But I've only walked through really 3 rooms, but the upkeep, though, I mean, this is a vast house. I know it's been built on, as you explained, but the upkeep is...
It is.
And it's your private home. And I know you've children, you know, and this is a lot.
But it's a private home, but it's an office. I mean, it's a business. We've all got to, you know what it's like.
I know.
mean, you live and work above the shop, in the shop, round the shop. It works around you, and you sacrifice quite a lot of your life for it. But you've got to keep it going.
Yeah.
Keep the show on the road.
You've got to keep the show on the road, and you have so far. I mean, it's really spectacular. So here at Mapperton, much of the contents and the furniture actually comes from the original family ancestral seat, Hinchingbrook House, which had been in the family for over 350 years. It was the home of the Earls of Sandwich, but unfortunately, it was sold in the 1950s. And the same thing happened to the Willoughby family. After the First World War, Birdsall House became the main Willoughby family residence when Middleton Hall and Woollerton Hall were both sold. However, many of the pieces at Birdsall were brought from both of those family houses, and one of those treasures is absolutely stunning. Cara, this 4-poster bed is magnificent.
Yeah, it's good.
Do people sleep in this bed?
Yeah, definitely. No, this is from Woollerton, the house that the family used to own, the main big house in Nottingham, and so that's why it's so big. But it's by Chippendale. So it's a very big bed with all the original pelmets on it.
Oh my
so it's
goodness!
Beautiful.
It is
beautiful work, isn't it?
Exquisite. So this dates back to
late 1700s.
Yep.
Yeah.
And the fabric is wonderful as well.
Yeah, that's all original, which is, aren't we lucky?
Lucky. So again, so when Woollerton was sold, you were able to gather a lot of the contents.
Well, I think if the family didn't keep it, it was sold. Full stop. So that included the pelmets. We've got the pelmets in this room.
Yeah.
Everything, absolutely everything. It was stripped out and sold because they had to raise money for 80% of their estates.
Of the estate, because they were double death duty taxed, all that.
So that's why we've got these enormous cupboards, which almost look out of proportion in comparison to the house, but that's because Woollerton was a much, much bigger house.
Amazing. So you have Americans who come and stay here?
Yeah, absolutely.
And they just love it, I bet.
Yeah.
I mean, look at me, I'm smiling from ear to ear. I'm an American, and I love
that.
But
it's this is old England, isn't it? Suddenly.
It is. This is like when I walked into this room, you know, obviously my eye was drawn to the 4-poster bed, but this is England right here. This is history.
But it hasn't changed. Also, it really has not changed for hundreds of years.
Yeah.
Can you come?
I feel like I'm coming into, obviously, the private part of the house, if you like, but incredible kitchen. I do remember something. So obviously, because we're both part of historic houses, and there's all these awards that happen, and I remember, I'm sure you won the kitchen award.
Yeah, in 2019 we won the kitchen award. Yeah.
Right, I remember.
So they started it all up because the first thing that many generations do now, many family members do when they take over the house, is put in a new kitchen because they're so family based. They want space for the whole family to be in one room. They don't have the staff they used to. So now they wanted to have a prize for innovative putting kitchens into these big old houses.
This is incredible though, because I walked from that, historic looking part of the house into, again, this is still the historic part of the house, but you've modernized it and made it much more, family center, heartbeat.
Yeah, but this is where we live. I mean, we live in a massive house, but we actually all live in one room. Right. Ironically. Yeah. So I've got 3 children, 3 dogs. We all live here. This is home. This is the beating heart.
Yeah, and it's wonderful just to see the difference and really how these houses have evolved. Yeah. And we're much more relaxed now.
Yeah. When this house was running at its best in about sort of 1870s, they had 17 house staff, 20 gardeners, grooms, goodness knows what else, 2 walled gardens, 5 acres of glass houses. It's incredible. Now, none of that.
No, right, that's exactly right. None of that. And I actually prefer it. Yes, please. Thank you. I actually just prefer it like that because it keeps me busy.
Yeah, totally. I can just sat for hours doing needlepoint.
Yeah.
Can you bored?
So you did this project. Obviously, this will be. I always think of it as like a legacy, as you are the...
What are we going to leave behind for our generation?
Exactly.
So we had the Victorian kitchens that were downstairs. Then after the Second World War, they stopped being used. And when there were many less staff, there became 1 cook and 1 housekeeper. And they used these kitchens from the 1950s. So this was 6 different rooms, which we've knocked right the way through to make this kitchen. So it had to be somewhere that we lost a little bit of the old history, but in doing so, made a bit of the next history.
Well, that's perfectly put. And also, look at this view here as well. I mean, this is just a wonderful, amazing, unspoilt view of your garden and just of the landscape.
We're really lucky. It doesn't have anything that has been built in the last however many hundred years. Yeah. So there's nothing's changed. And you can imagine this. When Capability Brown designed it, you can imagine that it looked almost similar to what it does.
Right, and that's what's incredible at Capability Brown. I mean, that you are looking out to Capability Brown design right here. Yeah. I mean, wonderful.
I do wake up every morning and appreciate my view. It's not something that gets lost on me.
It's incredible. Every day, as historic homeowners, we do respect the past life of these wonderful, wonderful buildings, but also recognize a need to adapt them for modern life. And at Birdsall, Cara and her husband James have taken care to both preserve and modernize.
We only have about 15 weddings, as I said, but they need somewhere to dance in the evenings. At the moment, they're dancing in a marquee because if they dance in the house, there'll be damage, and we don't want that to happen. So what we're doing is we're turning the Victorian kitchens into a evening event space. So it creates a whole nother entity for us.
That is fantastic, because before you said they had their wedding breakfast in the oval room and the ballroom, but then they would dance in a marquee. Yeah. Is that right?
Exactly.
Now you're bringing everything in-house.
And I think when people want to look at a wedding in a house like this, and they want the historic surroundings, they could have a marquee anywhere in a field, wherever they wanted. They want something that's all unique and on site.
I do visit a lot of historic houses just so I can sort of meet the owners, and also get some ideas and, of course, look at the history. But I think more importantly, we are living in houses that have become our business. We're living above the shop. Yep. So I always remind people when they say, oh, your house is amazing, Mapperton, it's beautiful. I'm like, well, it is, but it's also a business. In order to restore the tapestries or repair for the roof and to make sure that the stonework is done correctly in the windows, usually for most of us, it's about opening up the house in some sort of way.
So downstairs is totally... You'll see it is. There's nothing in there. It's just the shell. But it was damp and it was in need of a lot of restoration. So if we can then develop it, use it, pay off what we've, borrowed to make it work, and then after that we've got an area of the house that wasn't used and is now being used.
Yes.
If our son wants to change that, in future years, and that's fine. But we've done what we need to do this generation to ensure that another bit of the house stays viable.
Yeah, and that's what it is. And this is, I mean, this is a vast house. And as you said, those 2 wings were added on. There's a lot of work that goes into this.
Yeah, but I think the family, when they were in sort of 1870s, when they were running at their best, they had parents, 13 children, 17 house staff. So you're constantly got, in your 30s, of number of people in here without any guests. So it was running as a big ship.
Right, it was running. You're just running it as a slightly bigger ship, really, with weddings,
with less staff.
That's right, and that's why these houses.
We've got to adapt to this world and adapt to how we can run them, because we can't run them in the way that they were built.
No.
So we have to run them in the way that we can manage in today's age.
It's perfectly put. Perfectly put. Well, cheers to that. To my lovely Birdsall mug. Can I buy one of these?
You can have one of them.
Okay, thank you. It'll be my souvenir. Well, I could not wait to explore downstairs, where the Victorian kitchens once were, and where Birdsall next chapter is literally coming to life. Oh my goodness. Okay, I'm obsessed with these, the bells. This is one of the best ones I've ever seen.
So we've got 3 sets of bells, and each bell has a different tone, so that if the guests were in the evening drawing room, or the morning drawing room, or the library, or the billiard room, then the member of staff would know exactly which room they were in and which room was calling them from the tone of the bell.
This is like another world, another time that I love. I mean, listen, I'll be honest, me as the American, and I think many people though, visiting these historic houses, we love this upstairs, downstairs that used to exist. And we've obviously all evolved, because there is no downstairs anymore.
No, well, this was last used after the Second World War.
Okay, so give me a little bit of history. We're downstairs. This is
the old kitchen.
Right.
Those are the 2 different oven sets. There's a big range that's gone off to be restored. This is the old warming oven going through to the servants' hall. We've got a clock, Victorian clock up there, which is going to be restored. And all the hooks and everything are on here. And this is going to be our dance floor with a glitter ball.
Oh my gosh, I love your glitter ball.
That's great.
It's amazing.
Ball, isn't it?
This is amazing. So now, okay, I see you've got the plans out. Has anybody done this before as far as converting? I mean, you've got a huge downstairs space. I mean, this is massive. This is what we all think about when you've got the upstairs, downstairs.
Yeah.
This is enormous.
Yeah, I think other people have done it. And certainly the Historic House have put us in touch with a couple that we've been to see.
Right,
they haven't been quite like this. As in the amount of space, but aim big or go home.
Aim big. Okay, so walk me through this. Oh my gosh, this is incredible.
So we've got a new entrance so that guests can leave the house completely or come in completely separately, and that comes into the old pantry and old sinks area, which we'll see in a minute. And we've then got a big dance floor.
We're in the dance floor area right now.
Yeah.
With the large glitter ball with a motor.
It's got to go round.
It's brilliant. Fantastic.
Then we've got the cook's room next door.
Okay.
Where the cook had her organisational room and her desk and things like that, the old original head cook. We've got staff cloakrooms, which used to be carpenters' offices. We've got the old servants' hall, which is a really big sitting out area for new guests.
Right.
And a new bar is going into a room adjacent to that. Then we've got an area for eating in the evening, so we can put out a buffet that people can
pizza, whatever with it. Late night snacks. Exactly yes.
And a cocktail bar, so they can go and have cocktails there. Gosh. So it's going to be good.
Unbelievable.
It's a big project.
It's a big project. So what are you doing as far as aesthetically with the look of it?
Because we're trying to keep it very much like the old kitchens. We're trying to keep the atmosphere.
Right, and you said you're restoring that.
Restoring the old ovens.
Right.
They're all off. That's all the soot still from
That's the soot.
Hundreds of years of
So this
cooking.
is not paint?
No, that's not paint, that is soot.
No.
Yeah.
Oh my, so what will you do with this then?
Probably, to be fair, probably take it off because it's going to get on people's clothes. And so it's not going to be very friendly for people. But we could paint it black, but actually underneath is really nice old stone. So I think we'll keep that. We'll just brush it back.
So this is the cook's room through here, is that right?
So this is where, you know, the head cook used to live. She probably had all her ingredients in here and things like that.
This entire sort of cabinet, chest of drawers, whatever you want to call it, dresser, this will stay?
This will stay, and actually these are the shelves from this side, but there was such loose plaster behind them that they were loose. So the plaster's come off, and then those are going back on the wall, just so that you can see there, it's, you know, it's getting loose behind it, and we just need to make sure that it's all really solid. And then this one is actually lowering a bit and turning into seating for guests. So everything's going to be done up, not beautifully. The whole point is not properly shiny. It's in working order and solid and secure. So it's got all the old plates, all the old enamelware I've got will all go up on the shelves.
So head chef was in here. It's big space for a head chef. Do you think so?
I think she's got quite a small desk, and then she probably had, you know, lots of stuff in here.
So she's doing all of her recipes here.
Yeah. Exactly.
All the recipes here.
Exactly.
And what do you think she would have kept in these drawers? Just curious.
I don't know, but I mean, butler's instruments and, you know, all those sort of things. I mean, sure, it's probably full of candlesticks and probably not silver because they were kept in the silver room, but all the stuff you need to run a kitchen.
To run a kitchen, incredible. This is unbelievable. All right, where to next?
Let's go down to the old servants' hall.
Okay, fantastic. This is, I mean, I'm trying to feel the energy of what it would have been like.
Shops down there, and then in here we've got the servants' hall, which is the food would come in from the corner, straight from the ovens. This is the original table that they all sat at. And they all had their meals and chatted away in here.
When you were, did you have to clear out quite a bit of bits?
Yes, it's been used as storage for ages.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, I did look at the plans, but remind me, I'm here at a wedding, and now where am I?
This is going to be the seating area. So you're going to have sofas.
Hang out.
Sofas, banquette seating, low lighting, quite gentleman's club.
Right, yes.
And then this is going to be the bar.
And this is going to be the
bar.
bar.
So we've got a semicircular bar, and it's all going to be...
Right. And I have just spotted, because my beady little eye has spotted more bells.
More bells. So these are coming out, these white things are coming out.
Right.
But then you've got number 17A, housekeeper's room, dining room. These are slightly more back of house actually than...
Yes, that's what I saw.
Than that set.
You've got sitting room, bathroom, and dressing room.
But interestingly, they all make different noises. So always use a candle snuff up. Got a small dining room, and then, for instance, what's that one? The sitting room. Yeah, makes a different tone to the dining room.
Oh yeah.
So
then they would get used to the sound. They would know that sound,
that tone was theirs, and they were due upstairs.
And they were due upstairs.
Probably in the middle of their meal.
Yeah. You're probably right. The bells are obviously staying.
Obviously, yeah. Everything that was part of the 1870s kitchen is staying.
So I
it's a big project, but
I'm
it's
just trying to think if I have like a big birthday coming up, or if I can.
You'll have to come back when it's finished.
I just need to think of what kind of party I want to have here.
Definitely.
All these ideas. I love it. I'm inviting myself to have have my own party here. It's amazing.
Let's go through to the pantry.
Okay. I mean, it's like a maze down here.
So these are old sinks along here. They're all bowed so the water keeps going down. And then that's an old pantry.
What's
I think it's a cold store because it has a huge, great sort of stone.
And I can see the hooks.
Yeah.
Okay.
Pestle and mortar.
Oh my goodness! It's enormous. This is wow.
That's some of the old storerooms where the vegetables used to come in and out every day from the wall gardens, and then come in through to the kitchens.
Wow. So remind me where I am again now. This is a pantry. No.
Well, this is more of the sort of sinks area, isn't it? And then that's
Right.
an old steam oven. Oh. So it's a very early steam oven, so we're going to do that up. And then this will be the entrance hall for the event space. So these windows are going to become doors. And then everyone will come in through here, and with all the old plate racks and the old sinks and the old ovens. And then that'll give us, I've got some enamel signs, and it'll give us the feeling that we're actually in the old kitchens.
Oh my gosh. It's amazing. It's incredible just to think that, 100 years ago, this was obviously in full use as a working kitchen, but you're able to then take this space, keep all of these important features, call it the old kitchens, and then it's evolved to where we are.
The next generation. But what we're lucky is that no one changed it in the middle, so that we have got the stuff from 150 years ago. Otherwise, it would be the old kitchens of either 70s, which would be a bit of a problem.
Yes, that's a fair point. That is a fair point. And then what about up here? I'm just looking at this.
Well, to be fair, the M&E guys, the mechanical and electrical guys, want that roof void to put all their stuff in. So I was going to make it into a vault, but I've been
you've got
it down on that.
Yeah.
I've kept some things compromised with
builders.
builders.
It's a compromise.
But these are all staying.
These are all staying.
Yeah.
Look at these. These are amazing.
But they must have been quite short
sinks.
because they're quite low.
Yeah,
You can actually break your back
Yeah,
if you were trying to do that all the time.
You're right.
Yeah.
So, okay, entrance hall. So this will be, in one sense, the brick comes out there to create the doors.
Yeah, the doors are literally going to be very wide doors, so they're going to be exactly what they are now.
And look at that lovely beam up there.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So we're keeping all the brick where it's brickwork, we're keeping it as brick.
Yeah.
Where it's painted, we'll keep it as paint. So it's going to look pretty rustic down here.
And I like that green color.
Yeah, that's the colour that's going all over.
That's, when you mentioned the green color back there, that's a really lovely green color.
Yeah.
I mean, Cara, this is, and I know I keep saying it over and over again, but it's a tremendous project. I'm just trying to think, are you hiring? Because I really want to be a part of this job.
How good are your skills?
Excellent. I'm really, really good I'm a very good decorator.
Okay.
So I could do the green paint.
Yeah, you're on.
Oh my goodness, the transformation that is taking place downstairs at Birdsall is absolutely breathtaking. History is really being brought to life. Thank you so much for joining me, and I hope you've enjoyed this wonderful, wonderful visit to Birdsall House. Today I am here at Burton Constable in Yorkshire. As you can see, it's a glorious Elizabethan house. And I'll be visiting the family who still live in part of the house, but also viewing the highlights of their very extensive collection. I know from my own research into the lives of the Montagu family how absolutely fascinating it is to delve into the historic collections of houses like Mapperton. You can literally spend hours on a wonderfully exciting journey of discovery. And many historic houses open their doors to the public to share their amazing archives and treasures. On a recent visit to Yorkshire, I spent time at Burton Constable Hall, an absolutely beautiful Elizabethan house, home to the Constable family and their descendants for over 700 years. In 1992, the Burton Constable Foundation was established in order to safeguard the hall and collection for the future. And now the foundation, with the family, work to preserve and share the wonders of Burton Constable with the public. In the Great Hall, I met up with curator Philippa Wood to find out more about Burton Constable's past.
So this painting shows it in around 1690.
Okay.
So that's one of the key periods of the house. That's when Sir John Constable had built on it and expanded it. The earliest part of the hall was actually a tower, the North Tower, just there.
Okay.
And that's actually from the 13th century.
Ah.
But as the family gained power, they decided they needed a bigger house, so they just sort of expanded it as they went through. And so eventually you end up with this enormous structure, and the courtyards were there, I promise. That's not just artistic imagination, but
Incredible.
it is.
Absolutely
it's phenomenal.
incredible. And so who was within the family? Because I've read it's been in the family for, what, nearly 700 years, is that right?
Yes.
But who in the family decided to expand it? Was there one person in particular?
So yes, so that was Sir John Constable, who
So he's sort of the one we can attribute to what we see more of today?
Yes, so he gained a lot of power from his father-in-law.
Okay.
And he became the Seigneur of Holderness, and he had all of this wealth and status in the county, and that's when he decided to really create this grand mansion for his family to live in and move here from nearby Howsham, where his family used to live.
Okay, fantastic. Burton Constable Hall is an Elizabethan gem, but I couldn't help but notice some Georgian features.
The Georgian side of things is from William, who inherited in the mid-1700s.
Okay.
His nose was out of joint because he had not inherited the title. His uncle, the 4th Viscount Dunbar, died without children, so it came through a cousin and then on to William. And so this, we think, was sort of William in a sense saying that he was still powerful and wealthy even though his family lost the title. So he completely redid the entire parkland, the entire house in more of a Georgian style.
Right.
Hence you get that door you just walked in, which used to be in the next door room, but it was moved to the centre to create Georgian symmetry.
Right.
Believe it or not, the entire house was painted sort of an ochre white colour.
No.
Yes. So William really did create an awful lot of changes to this house.
Yes, incredible. And those changes, what we're seeing today, have stayed then throughout, after the Georgian period, throughout sort of the 19th century. There haven't been too many other changes.
Not too many big structural
Right.
changes. When the Victorians came in,
Yeah.
everything was gilded, everything was bright and repainted and reupholstered, and everything was wonderful. And we get a lot of ball furniture from that period, but a lot of the Georgian stuff does remain.
Does remain, right.
And to be honest, a lot of the Victorian gilding has since disappeared under further repaintings. Apparently at some point it became seen as unfashionable.
Yes.
But you will see when we go into the next room that we've still got some very bright colours courtesy of the 1970s family, some of whom I believe you're going to be meeting
Yes.
the family of today.
Yes. Isn't that fascinating? I see it in almost every single historic house I visit. Each generation making their mark on the building. Today, Burton Constable is preserved and maintained by the Burton Constable Foundation.
So the foundation took the house on in 1992, so we're a charitable trust.
Yes.
But the family still lease the south wing, they're still trustees of the foundation, and our ethos is very much that we want to restore and retain everything, every part of the hall's history, and so the family are still very much a part of that.
Fantastic. There are over 30 rooms overflowing with family treasures and memories. I could not wait to take a closer look.
Yes, it's fantastic, isn't it?
Oh, tremendous, absolutely tremendous. So this is
the staircase hall.
right.
So this is the room where everyone either loves or hates the colour scheme. There's very little any in between.
I love it. I mean,
love it too.
It's because it's a showstopper. You walk in and you can't help but just pause. It makes you look. That's
Yep,
what it does.
absolutely.
So it makes you. So tell me a little bit about this room.
Believe it or not, it's actually one of the later areas of the house to be built. This was one of William's additions, and its cantilevered staircase is phenomenal.
Right.
And it was actually painted this colour in the 1970s by Gilded Age Constable, so it's one of
Okay.
our more recent colour schemes as well.
Yes.
But it's an absolutely phenomenal space. It's got some really lovely pieces of the collections in it. So it's got the Erard piano from the 1800s, which was a phenomenal piece even in its time. It was one of the best pianos they made. And then Lady Rosina, when she got it, decided it wasn't grand enough and sent it away to be gilded in Hull. So it's a wonderful collections piece.
And absolutely stunning paintings, and look at the gilt frames. It is very
yes,
gilded.
absolutely.
And that's why I think I love this sort of, you know, bright lemon sunshine color.
Yes, I know. I mean, it sets the room off beautifully, doesn't it?
It does make me smile.
I agree. Of course, in the 19th century, all of the banisters were gilded.
Were they?
Yes, the cornices were gilded. Everything. They brought in Binks from Hull and just decorated everything. So it would have been you can imagine how colourful it would have been.
Yes. I mean, with the sofas in here, it still has this, in one sense, a sense of a comfortable place to sit down.
And that's something that the foundation really works on, is to try and make this place feel like home, which is why we're so glad that the family are still very much involved in the work that we do.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. Brilliant. Well, I'm glad you kept the color. It does. It makes me smile when I come in here. So where are we heading to next then?
So we're going up the main stairs and we're going to go to the long gallery, which is much more Elizabethan appearance, even though, like the rest of the house, it was hugely renovated in the 18th and 19th centuries.
That was absolutely exquisite. And the long gallery. Yes?
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
Unmistakably, isn't it?
Well, the ceiling is, so period-wise, this dates back to?
17th century.
17th century.
So this is one of the older parts of the house. This is actually a really fascinating room because, of course, it's a typical long gallery in that it could be used for exercise when the weather was inclement and the ladies could show off their fine gowns here. But it's also of particular interest to me because of this portrait here, which is Lady Margaret. And she was a famed recusant. She was always in trouble with the Queen for hiding priests and not giving up her Catholic faith.
Right.
So much so that eventually her son had to write a document telling her where she could and couldn't go in the house because he wanted to save the rest of the family from getting in trouble should the worst come to pass. So we know that Lady Margaret was given permission to walk up and down the long gallery, which always makes me particularly fond of this room, even when you take away how beautiful it is and the spectacular frieze at the top.
Yeah, the frieze is spectacular, but can I just ask, when was the frieze installed here?
That would have been done in the 19th century when this room was very much in use. So this bay here used to be used as a theatre, which is why we've now got some of the theatre costumes and some of their theatre flats in here, just to sort of set the scene.
Yes.
And then as we go on further down, there's another big bay that would have been used for music. So you'd have had a piano there and a harp and various other musical instruments. So this has always been in use right from the Tudor period right up until the 19th century. It would have been where people gathered. It would have been a real social place, a place for first of all exercise and then music and entertainment. So it would have been really a phenomenal place. Oh, and we do have a chair that was used by Her late Majesty Queen Victoria.
No.
So the family was actually of sufficient standing that when Queen Victoria did visit Hull, it was actually the family who loaned her pieces for her hotel room. So it was the Clifford Constable's silverware that was sent to the Queen's bedroom to be used by her during her visit. There are newspaper reports that say that she was going to come here on a hot air balloon, but I'm not sure how realistic that was.
Right. Well, you know, it's always a good story to tell. That's what I always think. When you have these wonderful historic houses, it's about how many stories that you can tell and, you know, whether or not they're true or not.
Yes, absolutely.
Do you know what is extraordinary about this room, though, as you said, it was, you just said that it was a very much used room right on, through, even to today. If you think about it, it's being used because there's visitors coming through, which is wonderful, and learning about, of course, the history of Burton Constable. But I think as the American in me, anytime I see long galleries, I almost can't believe that it was used for exercise. But that's what, going up and down, especially here in England when the weather many times isn't fantastic.
Yes, I believe it's 22 times up and down equals a mile. So it has been counted.
Oh, really?
Yes.
22 times up and down equals a mile. Oh, I should challenge myself. Have you done that before, Philippa? Have you?
No, but I know the guides sometimes do if they're in here and it's a very quiet day. The volunteers will do that
We'll go
just
22
for their
times.
steps.
Each room you visit at Burton Constable has its own atmosphere and story to tell. In the 18th century, William Constable's passion for collecting resulted in an amazing cabinet of curiosities.
So this is all William Constable's cabinet of curiosities.
Okay, so William Constable, the Georgian, who we
Yeah.
see a lot of his work as far as in the fabric of the building, also as a collector?
Yeah,
Is it-
absolutely. So he once described himself as a virtue. He gives a long list of his accomplishments that include astronomy, gardening, science. It's similar to a modern Van de Graaff generator. So it would have harnessed static electricity.
Oh my goodness.
And he was doing a lot of electrical experiments in his house to the extent that he nearly blew it up at one point because he was doing some experiments with John Arden in the Long Gallery, and all of a sudden there was a big flash and a bang and some smoke, and we were quite lucky he didn't set the house on fire, if we're entirely honest. But no, he collected everything from geology to scientific instruments, telescopes, you name it. He was a typical gentleman of the Enlightenment. He just wanted to understand the entire world. He was a natural philosopher, to use their terminology, and he wanted to know everything. A lot of this stuff William would have learned about or collected on his grand tours of Europe.
Yes, of course, it was the big, everybody did a grand tour. I mean,
Absolutely.
if you were powerful and, you would go on the grand tour to discover the world. Historic houses are full of surprises, but I couldn't quite believe it when Philippa showed me one of the highlights of the collection: the skeleton of a 58-foot sperm whale.
So we affectionately know this whale as Constable Moby. It is, amazing enough, the only real-life whale that appears in the book Moby Dick, in as much as it was stranded on the seashore not far from here in 1825.
Right.
Sir Clifford Constable decided to rescue it. About 10 years later, he finally got around to doing something with it and put it on iron mountings in the parkland, and you can still see the iron mountings leaning against the wall today.
Right.
It was a sensation. You got Victorian tourists coming from all over the place. You got scientists such as a gentleman called Beale, who wrote a book on whales, and he described it in intricate detail. We think he was a bit inventive with some of the facts, in that he described the ribs opening and closing like a fan, and we've no idea how they would have managed to do that.
No.
But either way, it came to the attention of Herman Melville, and he actually pretty much copied and pasted this, so much for plagiarism, into Moby Dick. So we have the only whale that's mentioned in Moby Dick that actually existed in real life.
So it's in here now, and are people coming to see this maybe as much as they did during the Victorian era, or do you want to do something with it? Because now it's obviously been taken away and it's here housed and stored, but for the public to see as well.
So we're really hoping that at some point in the not too distant future we'll get some money to make this room a better display room for it, and we will actually remount it on an on a metal structure, so that it looks once again like it's kind of swimming in the sea.
Yes. That would be fantastic. I mean, it's absolutely extraordinary, though. I mean, I've definitely never seen a whale skeleton before, much less the one from Moby Dick. Visiting Burton Constable Hall is the most wonderful historic journey. From the beauty and drama of the staircase hall and long gallery to the incredible cabinet of curiosities. But at its core, Burton Constable has always been a family home. And the family still retain apartments in the South Wing, where I met Rodrika Straker and her son Jack. I'm in the private part of the house. I feel very honored right now. So thank you very much. And it feels very much like the private part, the home. And it is a bit of a contrast from sort of coming from the long gallery, if you like, into here. But this was the entire house. Burton Constable was your home when you were growing up, is that right?
It was. This was, to be fair, this was always the private side of the house, because when you have, as you know, a house open to the public, you have to have a little bit of you time and family privacy, and this was always the private side. And this room was the converted kitchens when my grandfather moved back here. They were, the house was requisitioned during the Second World War by the army, and the family moved out in the 20s due to not being able to keep it up. Family moved out to a smaller house for about 25, 30 years, and then back in the 50s, my grandfather moved back in and converted this wing for himself and his wife and my father's parents, and this was the kitchens. But it's a really lovely family home. Yeah, it really is. The sort of back part of it. And we're really lucky, actually, to have had that privacy. When I was growing up, we were open to the public all the time, and it's all I can ever remember. And this was the proper retreat. You could run back in when you were scared by something or just overwhelmed by the amount of people who came for big occasions at weekends. When there was always a function on. Right,
always. There were always people here milling about. And that, of course, was caused by, after the Second World War, many of these homes, as you just mentioned, Burton Constable, same situation, was requisitioned. They come back to these homes, these historic house homeowners, they're in such a state, but also they've lost their staff, they have death duties, they have taxes, and that's when we really start to see this decline of the country house, these historic houses, because the owners, and I suspect your father was the same way, they had to start thinking, oh my goodness, how am I going to repair the roof or restore the painting or the piece of furniture that's been in the family and needs to be preserved? These historic house homeowners started to open up their house to the public. And is that what your father felt he had to do?
Very much so. He inherited here in 1963 when my grandfather died, and my grandfather had come from a sort of the typical Edwardian born, been through many wars, thought about nothing else. Everything else was trivial compared to the life and death existence that they'd lived. And when the family moved back, I mean, Burton Constable had been neglected effectively, much loved but neglected through not being able to afford to do anything with it, and also, as you say, there was no workforce, nobody was around. Death duties, double death duties in some cases. Had been neglected for about 50 years, and it had really deteriorated. So in 1963, when my father inherited, and my mother and he had been married about 6 months,
oh my goodness.
They tried to offer it to the National Trust, couldn't afford to take it on. It wasn't viable, as you'd call it, I suppose.
Right.
So they couldn't give it away. They really couldn't. And that's when they thought, that's it, we're going to have to start to be creative. So they went to see Bewley, Edward Montagu, all of the houses that are just newly opened with great ideas. Do we want to have a zoo? Do we want to have a historic car collection? Do we want to have, what do we want to have? We're an hour east of everywhere, and where can we glean our interest? And it was really on the ground, weekends with interests like custom car rallies and traction engine rallies and country fairs, and that brought in 40, 50, 60,000 visitors a year, but notably only about 10, 15% of those ever went through the house. And it was, my parents recognised that it wasn't the house that was attracting them, but it was they that needed to be attracted in order to keep the house going and to begin the programme of restoration. And that brought a big government grant to restore the roof, and that's really where the tipping point came in the 70s, where it became potentially viable.
Right.
And they said, right, we are going to do this thing. And they worked for 30 years. Hardly took a holiday. Didn't really look up, I think, until my mother died in 1989. And then my father couldn't really cope because he'd run out of steam, ideas.
Well, and he lost his sort of lifelong partner, and it sounds like they were much a team, very much a team, doing this together.
They were, and they'd opened up to functions and weddings and you know.
Started a band, didn't they?
They started a band in the 60s called the Hullabaloos, and they took that to America. They tried everything, literally everything. And you're absolutely right.
So many historic houses needed to adjust to post-war Britain, and homeowners had to be inventive, with many opening their doors to the public. Burton Constable survived by the ingenuity of Rodriguez's parents. But after the death of her mother in 1989, change became inevitable.
And so my father said, we must keep the collections of Burton Constable, because that which remains here does so simply because nobody's sold it. The house is a collection of you know, historic amalgamations of families.
Yes.
And that is fascinating in its own right, and everything that Philippa talks about is lots of generations of constables, but also whom they married, bringing in various different elements of those families. And so there's a proper story, a family genealogy story, which is evidenced by all the collections. So Dad always said, I do not want to sell the collections. This is the one thing that is telling the story. And then to keep the family in it, because they felt that that was the most important living history.
Absolutely.
As an educational tool.
Yes.
And sort of conserve the living as well as the artifact within it.
To secure Burton Constable's long-term future, in 1992, the Burton Constable Foundation was established. With this arrangement, Rodriguez's father did all that he could to ensure the long-term survival of the hall and its collection. And with part of Burton Constable remaining a family home, the living history continues.
It was such a relief for my father, because then it wasn't going to be a burden, what he considered to be an unachievable goal for Jack, who was by then 2. But he'd already claimed.
He saw the potential.
Right. Of course he did.
You're a remarkably precocious child.
Brilliant. It's brilliant. So he, in one sense, had insight. He felt that, okay, this is going to be the best for the family and for future generations. Because you are still here, you're living here, as you so perfectly pointed out, and that's what I think is what's wonderful about these historic houses, and we're all, you know, most of us living in historic houses are a part of the historic houses, the organization, because it's about the living history. It's the history that has existed in your case for 700 years. You're still here. And yes, the public can enjoy it, as they should, but you're able to then continue with your memories that will be passed on to your children and children, and those stories can still be told. It didn't stop with your father.
No.
It's wonderful. I mean, I, of course, had a fantastic walk around, and just to see the history then, but also the living history now, and having, you know, Jack here. And
well, I think it's very important to have some guiding principles of sort of family values in terms of where you want to go, but you've got to move with the times. You know, you can't sort of just try one thing and say, well, that's what we're going to do for the next 50 years. It's been very interesting for me, as Mum said, you know, Grandpa was always thinking about a few generations in the future, and I've grown up knowing I've been sort of tied into this place since day one, and it's been really interesting seeing Mum and Grandpa through the 1990s and 2000s, because they were obviously the family trustees, keeping a hand on the tiller, you know, for the first 20 years of the foundation's existence. And then I think from my end, I've been involved very much on the fringes for sort of many years, and then more actively probably in the last 5 or 6 years. So it's really been fascinating to have these two very inspiring forebears, you know, in my lifetime to look up to. And when I was in the fun park, because I moved up in September last year, so I've been in position, I suppose, for what, 6-8 months.
Yes. Not very long.
Not very long, no.
Such a quick learner. It's unbelievable.
Well, that's very kind of you to say, but
It's terribly important for the next generation to just segue in really quickly, but also very, very enthusiastically, because the lesson from Burton Constable or any of the other historic houses that have made it through the sort of night of hell, relatively, is never give up, and you're much better placed if you're in occupation and you're indentured.
That's right.
To be able to see the point of why you're doing this, and what will come if you really want it to happen.
You look at the outside of these houses, you look at the inside of these houses, and you have to make a decision. Am I going to give it my all, or am I just going to sort of, occasionally just let it sit, do its thing, and when it needs to be done, something needs to be done. And I think some people are in two minds about that. I'll just sort of let it carry on and function as it is, and great. But I think the three of us can collectively say we're not in that camp to just let it just carry on and function as it is. We want it to continue for future generations, and that does mean thinking out of the box. And you're going to get some things right, you're going to get some things wrong, but hopefully you get more right than you get wrong, and so that it can carry on, and it is looking to the future.
a slight side story. But my room is up there, and it's next to one of the more, I say, more haunted rooms in the house. And people often ask, "God, it's really scary being in the house all on your own." I was like, and because probably about once a month or something, I wake up in the middle of the night and hear a door slamming next door, which is pretty unusual because it's it's alarmed and locked up and everything. And people go, "That must be terrifying." I said, "Well, not really, because it's been a pretty happy house for 700 years, and we haven't had any sort of murders or anything. And it's probably an ancestor yet.
Yes.
It's probably an ancestor." And I was thinking, well, rather reassuring, They're
looking after you.
Exactly, and the fact that they haven't haunted me means that it's not going too badly wrong so far. So
no.
I think it's a good canary in the mine there. So if things start getting thrown about, that's when to start worrying. But it's that I think being able to tap into that sort of long line of innovation and passion for a place is very important. As someone who lives here and wants to look forward to the next generations, but also for the perspective of marketing the house to the public, you have to have a story and a narrative. And I think that it's this rather mad family that's lived here for so long is the only thing that makes sense, really.
Yeah, it's wonderful. Well, thank you both so much for your time, but I just want to say, here's to the future for you, Jack, and now that you've taken on the reins. You've only been here 6 to 8 months, but
I'd say more of a joint venture at the minute.
But that's right. But it's the both of you together. It's wonderful, and it's taking what your mother has given you, shown you, and using that, and then moving it forward. So here's to the future of Burton Constable. It's in good hands.
Thank you
very
much.
much.
Thank you.